series, Let's Learn English as a Second Language, which is produced for grade 9 learners and anybody else who has an interest in the subject. My name is Innocentia. Today we will learn about the prose form summary. Please have a pen and notebook ready so that you can make notes of the important points. And don't forget to take part in the quiz at the end of the program. Just like any grade 9 learners, Section B of Paper 1, Part 2 requires you to summarize a 450-word text. Today's program will analyze the set summary form. At the end of this program, you should be able to know the difference between prose and point form summaries, how to summarize a given text in prose form, how to summarize in your own words as far as possible, how to shorten a 450-word text to 100 words, know what determines the summary, how to produce a good summary, distinguish between irrelevant and relevant details.
Hey John.
Yo, Elvis.
How's it, man?
It's all good. How you doing?
Great. Yeah, I struggle with my summary writing, my friend. How about you? Do you?
My friend, summary writing by nature is complicated to comprehend. It troubles me here and there too.
If my memory serves me right, Miss Florence said she would talk about the prose summary writing today.
Yeah, there she comes.
Good morning, class. Settle down and keep quiet, learners. As I promised yesterday, today we are going to learn about prose form summary writing. What is summary writing, Elvis?
No idea, Miss Florence. Maybe my friend John knows.
Ma'am, I really struggle to write it too.
Okay, a summary is a restatement of someone else's words in your own words. However, from academic point of view, when writing a summary, remember that it should be in the form of a paragraph. A summary that is written in the form of a paragraph is called prose form summary, whereas the one that is written in points is called point form summary. Is it clear, class?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Miss?
Yes?
How does one write it?
Good question, John. A summary begins with an introductory sentence that states the text title and main point of the text as you see it. Again, a summary is written in your own words. Yes, Elvis, your hand is up.
Yes, Miss Florence. Can I add my own ideas?
A summary contains only the ideas of the original text, so no. In addition, writing a summary is an important skill that learners use throughout their academic careers. It improves reading skills as learners pick out the main ideas of a reading. It also helps with vocabulary skills as learners paraphrase a text, altering the vocabulary and grammar as they do so.
Miss Florence?
Yes?
What determines the content of summary writing?
John, the given instruction does show you on what to summarize.
Is there a word limit, madam?
Yes, Elvis, you have to shorten a 450-word text to 100 words.
Ma'am?
Yes, John?
If a learner exceeds 100 words, what happens?
You will lose marks.
And Miss?
Yes, Elvis?
How to produce a good summary?
Okay, remember the following. Read the article to be summarized and be sure you understand it. Note the main points in accordance with the given instruction or question. Thereafter, write a draft of the summary without looking at the text or article or passage. Take note, always use paraphrase when writing a summary. But if you do copy a phrase from the original, be sure it is a very important phrase that is necessary and cannot be paraphrased. In this, put quotation marks around the phrase. Always maintain the content of the original text.
Wow! Today I've learned that a summary is a restatement of original words in your own words. Prose summary is written in a form of a paragraph, whereas the one that is written in points is called point form summary. Summarizing improves reading and writing skills simultaneously. A summary is being determined by the given instruction. As per instruction, you have to write a 100-word summary. Make sure that you understand the text before you can attempt to summarize it. Write a draft before the actual piece. Important phrases don't require paraphrasing, but you have to put quotation marks around the phrase.
And that brings us to the end of today's program. But before we say goodbye, here is your quiz for today. What determines the content of a summary? Is it A, topic or heading? B, author or writer? C, instruction? Or D, length? This program was written by Alwas Mbaha. So until next time, take care.
The Education Radio Initiative is possible with support from the Ministry of Education as part of the Education and Training Sector Improvement Program.
Good afternoon, listeners, and welcome to our second 5-program series. Let's learn English as a second language, which is produced for grade 9 learners and anybody else who has an interest in the subject. My name is Innocentia. Today we will learn about the active and passive voices. Please have a pen and notebook ready so that you can make notes of the important points. And don't forget to take part in the quiz at the end of the program. Just like any grade 9 learners, Section A of Paper 1, Part 3, a 350 to 400 word text with questions, test knowledge, understanding and application of various aspects of grammar, such as active and passive voices. Today's program will analyze the aforementioned aspects, active and passive voices. At the end of this program, you should be able to know when to use the passive voice, know how to identify the passive voice, differences between active and passive voices, convert an active voice sentence into passive voice, active and passive voices basic rules. Who opened my classroom?
John opened the classroom, Miss Florence.
The classroom was opened by me.
Interesting. I like your language usage. Elvis uses active voice, whereas John uses passive voice.
Wow, how so?
When the sentence is in active voice, the subject performs the action. In passive voice, the subject receives the action.
It sounds complicated. Explain further, Miss Florence.
John, for example, I write a letter. This sentence is in active voice. In passive voice, it reads, "A letter was written by me." The structure of the same sentence changes when expressed as active or passive voice. The meaning of a sentence, either expressed as active or passive voice, remains the same.
Oh, how do I understand the difference in both voices, Miss Florence?
Okay, Elvis, to understand the difference in both voices, we should focus on the subject and the object. In passive voice, the object is acted upon by the subject. The meaning remains the same in both voices, but the sequence of the words, subject and object, changes. The sequence of subject and object as in active voice is reversed when it is expressed in passive voice.
My sentence in active voice reads, I eat an apple. In passive voice it goes, an apple is eaten by me. Does it make sense?
Before Miss Florence explains further, let me say some sentence too. In active voice, he bought a car. In passive voice, it sounds, a car was bought by him. What can you say about our conversation, miss?
Apart from reversing the sequence of subject and object, as you both did, the form of the verb of the sentence also changes in both voices. In your sentences, you can see the change in the main verb as well as the auxiliary verb of the same sentence in both voices. The only form of the verb used in passive voice is the third form of the verb, which is called past participle. Hence, the rule for changing verb, for converting a sentence from active voice into passive voice, is to use only third form of the verb in passive voice. For changing the auxiliary verb, for converting sentence from active voice into passive voice, there are rules varying for tenses.
Miss Florence,
Yes?
the word by is used when?
The word by is used before the subject in passive voice, John. For example, active voice, she drinks water. Now, in passive voice, water is drunk by her. In addition, other words such as with or to may also be used instead of the word by, depending upon the subject of the sentence. Okay? For example, active voice, I know him. Passive voice, he is known to me. Active voice, water fills a tub. Passive voice, a tub is filled with water.
Oh, but sometimes you don't mention the subject, Miss Florence. Why?
I know, the subject may not be always mentioned in passive voice. Passive voice for some sentences can be also written without having a subject, if it gives a clear idea about the subject. For example, the ball is kicked, or an apple is eaten. Both sentences are in passive voice.
Today, I've learned that when the sentence is in active voice, the subject performs the action. In passive voice, the subject receives the action. The structure of the same sentence changes when expressed as active or passive voice. The meaning of a sentence, either expressed as active or passive voice, remains the same. To understand the difference in both voices, we should focus on the subject and the object. In passive voice, the object is acted upon by the subject. The only form of verb used in passive voice is the third form of the verb, or which is called the past participle. For changing the auxiliary verb for converting a sentence from active voice into passive voice, there are rules varying for tenses. Passive voice for some sentences can be also written without any subject if it gives a clear idea about the subject.
And that brings us to the end of today's program. But before we say goodbye, here is your quiz for today. John drives the car. How does this sentence read in passive voice? Is it A, the car is driven? B, the car has been driven? C, the car is being driven? Or D, the car was being driven? This program was written by Elvis Mbaha. So until next time, take care.
The Education Radio Initiative is possible with support from the Ministry of Education as part of the Education and Training Sector Improvement Program.
Good afternoon, listeners, and welcome to our third 5-program series. Let's Learn English as a Second Language, which is produced for grade 9 learners and anybody else who has an interest in the subject. My name is Innocentia. Today we will learn about the Pearl, Chapter 1. Please have a pen and notebook ready so that you can make notes of the important points. And don't forget to take part in the quiz at the end of the program. Just like any grade 9 learners, the literature paper or paper 4, part 2, requires the learners to demonstrate what they know about the prescribed novel, The Pearl. Today's program will look at chapter 1 of the aforementioned prose, The Pearl. At the end of this program, you should be able to know what happens in the beginning of The Pearl, chapter 1, know the theme of The Pearl, chapter 1, know the 3 important characters in the said chapter, know the 2 songs in this chapter which reflect the mood at the time as well as characters' thoughts and feelings. Know how Joanna administers first aid to the baby. Know why the author compares Joanna's eyes to the eyes of a lioness. Know Doctor's character. Know Joanna's unusual request. Know Doctor's refusal to treat Coyotito. Know what Kino does to show his anger. Good afternoon, class. Right, since we are approaching the examination today, we are going to revise chapter 1 of The Pearl.
Wow, what an opportune platform, John.
Yes, interesting, Miss Florence.
I will be asking you questions that are based on chapter 1 only. First question. What happens in the beginning of The Pearl, chapter 1?
Yes, Miss Florence. In the beginning, Kino lives a life of simplicity and happiness, but when he is discovered, take two. But when he is take two. But when he discovers the pearl, he believes that good will come from it. However, a sense of evil accompanies it. After that, Kino and his family were in constant battle against the evil to preserve the good that they enjoyed before.
John, what is the theme of the Pearl, Chapter 1?
Miss, an overriding theme of John Steinbeck's Parable of the Pearl is that good versus evil. This theme is connected to the theme of social class that begins at the end of Chapter 1 and develops further in the narrative. Because Kino's people were once creators of songs, his culture produced many songs.
Good stuff. Before I ask you about the characters, now Elvis, tell us what happened to Coyotito.
Yes, ma'am. When Coyotito shakes the rope of the hanging box, the scorpion falls and lands on his shoulder and stings him. Kino immediately seizes the creature and crushes it in his grasp, beating it to death on the floor for good measure. Kino's retribution does no good, and the Coyotito screams with pain.
Wow, Elvis, beautiful. These kids are well prepared. John, who are the 3 important characters in the Pearl, Chapter 1?
Ma'am,
Yes, John?
the 3 main characters introduced in Chapter 1 are Kino, his wife Joanna, and the doctor, who is unnamed. Songs and music are usually very important in cultures where people cannot read or write.
John mentions the songs. Elvis, these songs reflect the mood at the time, as well as the characters' thoughts and feelings. Now, can you name each song and explain what each one symbolizes?
Yes, Miss Florence. Song of the Family represents the security, warmth, and love. All is well. And the Song of Evil, heard whenever evil or danger threatens the safety or security of the family. The Scorpion.
And John, can you explain how Joanna administers first aid to the baby?
Well, miss, Joanna administers first aid to the baby by putting her lips down over the puncture and sucking out the poison.
These learners look ready. Elvis, why do you think the author compares Joanna's eyes to the eyes of a lioness?
Yes, Miss Florence. A mother lioness will do anything to protect her young, no matter what the cost. Joanna is determined to save her baby, her most precious possession. Her cold eyes merely reflected the deep determination.
Fascinating. Wow. John, describe the doctor's character for me.
Well, ma'am, the 4 beggars in front of the church knew that the doctor was fat, lazy, ignorant, cruel, and filled with avarice. He had given clumsy abortions and brown pennies for alms. The doctor was described by the author when the servant went to inform him about the baby as dressed in a gown of silk that was too tight and being overweighted, puffy eyes and hoarse throat.
Thanks, John. Now, Elvis, what unusual person does Joanna ask for? And why is this such an unusual request?
Yes, Miss Florence. The unusual person that Joanna asked for is the doctor. This was an unusual request because the doctor never came to the cluster of the brush houses where Kino and Joanna lived.
Yes. Now tell me, why does the doctor refuse to treat Coyotito, John?
Ma'am, the doctor refuses to treat Coyotito because Kino and Joanna had no money or anything of monetary value to pay for the treatment.
Yes. Okay, now last but not least, Elvis, what does Kino do to show his anger?
Yes, miss. Kino showed his anger by hitting the iron gate with a crushing blow with his fist.
Aina. What a lively lesson we have had. These learners are gifted indeed, and that brings us to the end of today's program. But before we say goodbye, here is your quiz. Here are 3 questions. Question 1. Around what year does the Pearl take place? Is it A, 1910, B, 1850, C, 1900, or D, 1950? Question 2. What does Joanna do in the morning after she starts a fire? Is it A, makes breakfast, B, cleans the floor, C, watches ants, or D, feeds Coyotito? Then the last question. What does Joanna do right after Coyotito is bitten by a scorpion? Is it A, kills the scorpion, B, sucks out the venom, C, summons Joanna Thomas, or D, faints? This program was written by Alwas Mbaha. So until next time, take care.
The Education Radio Initiative is possible with support from the Ministry of Education as part of the Education and Training Sector Improvement Program.
Good afternoon, listeners, and welcome to our 4th 5-program series. Let's Learn English as Second Language, which is produced for grade 9 learners and anybody else who has an interest in the subject. My name is Innocentia. Today we will learn about the argumentative essay. Please have a pen and notebook ready so that you can make notes of the important points. Don't forget to take part in the quiz at the end of the program. Just like any grade 9 learners, the continuous writing paper, or part 2 of paper 2, requires the learners to respond creatively using their imagination to a variety of tasks, using appropriate style, for example, writing essays. A grade 9 learner should be able to write a 210 to 250 word longer piece. Today's program will analyze the argumentative essay. At the end of this program, you should be able to know what is an argumentative essay, the format of an argumentative essay, the features of an argumentative essay, the possible topics. Well, class, as I had promised, I would invite 2 accomplished writers to discuss an argumentative essays with you. Here we are having Elvis, who writes for the New Era newspaper, and John, who writes for the Daily Maverick magazine. Without any further ado, Elvis, good afternoon. What is an argumentative essay?
Yes. Hello, learners and Miss Florence. An argumentative essay seeks to state a position on an issue and given several reasons, supported by evidence agreeing with that position. And there are 5 types of argument claims.
John, what are the 5 types of argument claims?
Well, Miss Florence, there are 5 types of argument claims, and they are fact, is it true or not? Definition, what does it really mean? Value, how important it is. Cause and effect, what is the cause? What are the effects? Policy, what should we do about it?
There must be a thesis statement. What is it, Elvis?
Yes, Miss Florence. A thesis statement is a sentence in your introductory paragraph that concisely summarizes your main points and claims and presents your stance on the topic. It's worth spending some time crafting a strong thesis statement, since it lets the readers know what the essay will be about and determine whether they want to read it.
John, how does one write the thesis? Can you tell us the best way, please?
Well, question or answer format. The easiest way to write a thesis statement is to turn the topic or prompt into a question, then answer that question.
To add to this, your question often can be the title of your essay, or it can be the first line of your introduction. Your answer to the question is your thesis. For example, question used for title. What is the best way to prevent cruelty to animals? Answer the thesis. The most important way to prevent cruelty to animals is to introduce modern laws with effective penalties.
Gentlemen, our time is constraining. Let's analyze the format and features. An essay is made of introduction, body, and conclusion. What does it mean, John?
The introduction explains the subject, the controversy, and ends with the thesis. Some tips to go. Use the title to present your point of view. The title is often your thesis statement or the question you are trying to answer. Be concise. You are only introducing your argument, not debating. Make sure you have a clear thesis that answers the question. The thesis should state your position and is usually the last sentence of your introduction.
The body usually consists of 3 or more paragraphs, each presenting a separate piece of evidence that supports your thesis. Those reasons are topic sentences for each paragraph of your body. You should explain why your audience should agree with you. Make your argument even stronger by stating opposing points of view and refuting those points.
Well, Elvis, as far as argumentative essay is concerned, what do you mean by reasons and support?
Yes, Miss Florence. Support each of your reasons with logic, example, statistics, and authorities.
How do you anticipate opposing positions and arguments?
What objections will your readers have? Answer them with argument or evidence. Simple as that.
The conclusion, in many ways, mirrors the introduction. It summarizes your thesis statement and main arguments and tries to convince the reader that your argument is best. It shows what will happen if the readers adopt your ideas.
As we are concluding today's lesson, let's deliberate on possible topics. Elvis, how do I start an argumentative on the topic? Cleaning toilets should be part of the school curriculum.
Yes, Miss Florence. Start with a story which describes why you have these beliefs. Then follow it up with a statement and reasons. Conclude with an appeal to the readers to include this in the school curriculum, an explanation of why it will help the school and learners.
Okay. John, how do I start an argumentative essay with the topic? Should the death penalty be banned as a form of punishment?
Start with the story of a person who was given the death penalty for a crime they didn't commit.
Wow, many many thanks to the both of you gentlemen. What a lively lesson we have had. We have come to the end of today's program, but before we say goodbye, as usual, here is the quiz. What is the appropriate length of an essay for grade 9 learners? Is it A, 200 to 210 words, B, 210 to 250 words, C, 150 to 180 words, or D, 180 to 200 words? This program was written by Elvis Mbaha. So until next time, take care.
The Education Radio Initiative is possible with support from the Ministry of Education as part of the Education and Training Sector Improvement Program.
Good afternoon, listeners, and welcome to our fifth 5-program series. Let's Learn English as Second Language, which is produced for grade 9 learners and anybody else who has an interest in this subject. My name is Innocentia. Today, we will learn about the poetic devices. Please have a pen and notebook ready so that you can make notes of the important points. Don't forget to take part in the quiz at the end of the program. Just like any grade 9 learners, the literature paper or paper 4, part 1, requires the learners to answer one of 2 contextual questions of 20 marks each. Today's program will analyze the 6 of the many poetic devices, namely alliteration, simile, metaphor, rhyme, onomatopoeia, and personification. At the end of this program, you should be able to define a poetic device, identify the aforementioned 6 poetic devices, know how to use them. As I promised, I invited 2 accomplished poets to discuss poetic devices with you. Here we are having Elvis and John. Without any further ado, first I'm going to read one of the prescribed poems written by James Reeves that incorporates at least 5 of the 6 poetic devices that are going to be discussed by these experts. It reads as follows. The wind. I can get through a doorway without any key and strip the leaves from the great oak tree. I can drive storm clouds and shake tall towers, or steal through a garden and not wake the flowers. Seas I can move, and I'm a sinker. Ships I can sink. I can carry a housetop or the scent of a pink. When I'm angry, I can rave and ride like an angry crowd. And when I'm spent, I lie quiet as quiet. By James Reeves. John, before we analyze the poem as appropriate, let me kickstart by asking you this question. You are a poetry advocate. Why do you teach poetry?
Well, Miss Florence, as teachers, when we use poetry with the learners, we are modeling how to read, building familiar reading horizons, and they are being exposed to the poetic devices.
You have mentioned the poetic devices. What could that be, Elvis?
A poetic device is deliberate use of words, phrases, sounds, and even shapes to convey the message.
Words such as?
Simile, metaphor, alliteration, onomatopoeia, rhyme, and personification.
I thought you would mention all of them. The list is endless, I suppose.
My son, Mike, is in grade 9. As you alluded earlier, grade 9 syllabus covers the 6 that I have mentioned.
Minding the poem that I've just read by James Reeves, do you mind deliberating about the 6 poetic devices, John and Elvis?
The poem reads, "The wind, I can get through a doorway without any key, and strip the leaves from the great oak tree. I can drive storms and clouds, and shake tall towers, or steal through a garden and not wake the flowers. Seas I can move, and I'm a sinker. Ships I can sink. I can carry a house top, or scent of pink. When I'm angry, I can rave and riot like an angry crowd. And when I am spent, I lie quiet as quiet." James Reeves.
Let me start with a simile. A simile is a figure of speech that makes comparison, showing similarities between two different things. Unlike a metaphor, a simile draws resemblance with the help of words like or as. Therefore, it is direct comparison.
It is a direct comparison.
Take 2. It is a direct comparison.
Can we locate an example from the poem we have read, Elvis?
Absolutely, madam. The example is found in the last stanza, the first verse. I can rave and riot like an angry crowd.
We can also find similar examples in our daily speech. We often hear comments like, "John is as slow as a snail." Here, the slowness of John is compared to as that of a snail.
You want to say the use of as in the example helps to draw the resemblance. Now, we know the definition of simile. Elvis, take us through some examples of common similes.
Common examples of simile include, our soldiers are as brave as lions. The braveness of soldiers is compared to that of lions with the help of the word as. And another example, her cheeks are red like a rose. Take 2. The red cheeks are likened to a red rose with the help of the word like.
The way you have defined simile, if you take a metaphor literally, it will probably sound very strange. Are there actually any black sheep in your family?
A metaphor states that one thing is another thing. Ultimately, a metaphor is a figure of speech that describes an object or action in a way that it isn't literally true, but helps explain an idea or make comparison.
According to our poem, The Wind, stanza 3, verse 1, I am a sinker, is a fitting example.
More examples. Take 2. More examples. Love is a battlefield. Here, the word like or as used as in simile. Love is just compared to battlefield. Another example. Take 2. Another example. I am titanium.
What is the best definition of personification?
Personification is the attribution of human nature or character to animals or inanimate objects. Human traits and qualities, such as emotions, desires, sensation, gestures, and speeches are being given to animals other non-living objects.
John, can we find an example in our poem, The Wind?
The last stanza, first verse, reads, "When I'm angry, I can rave." This is a befitting example.
When I am angry, I can rave. The wind is not human to be angry and rave. Okay, take two. It's just given human qualities.
Is onomatopoeia an onomatopoeia?
Such a word itself is called an onomatopoeia. In English, it means the imitation of a sound.
The common examples of onomatopoeia are: the ship went bang. Silence your phone so that it does not beep during the movie. The bridge collapsed, creating a tremendous boom.
Interesting. What you are trying to imply is that onomatopoeia is a figure of speech in which words evoke the actual sound of the thing they refer to or describe.
Yes, Miss Florence. Unfortunately, this poem doesn't have its example. Alliteration is the repetition of consonant sounds at the beginning of words or stressed syllables. A series of words begin with the same consonant sound. A classic example is "She sells seashells by the seashore." All these words begin with the same consonant, S.
The third stanza, verse 1, echoes your explanation, John. Seas, I can move, and I'm a sinker. Ships, I can sink. It is clear indeed, I think, Elvis, the last of the 6 poetic devices in accordance with grade 9 syllabus is rhyme.
Yes, Miss Florence. Unlike alliteration, a rhyme is a repetition of similar sounds, usually exactly the same sounds, in the final stressed syllables and any following syllables of 2 or more words. In poetry, rhyme schemes refers to pattern of rhyming words at the end of lines of poetry. For example, accordance with our poem, The Wind, stanza 2 and 3, lines rhyme. I can drive storms, clouds, and shake tall towers, or steal through a garden and not wake the flowers. Seas I can move, and I'm a sinker. Ships I can sink. I can carry a housetop or the scent of a pink.
Yes, you can hear that all the words that are ending in the line, take 2. You can hear that all the words that are ending the lines rhyme.
Sure, this was the trickiest but yet interesting lesson ever. Well, we have come to the end of this program, but before we say goodbye, here is our quiz. What has like or as? Is it A, alliteration, B, rhyme, C, simile, or D, metaphor? This program was written by Alwas Mbaha. So until next time, take care.
The Education Radio Initiative is possible with support from the Ministry of Education as part of the Education and Training Sector Improvement Program.